California has more roller coasters than any other state in the US, and I've been lucky enough as a theme park and roller coaster enthusiast to call it my home. Despite that, I have only been on a grand total of 84 roller coasters, which might seem like a lot to some of you, but compared to these other prominent theme park YouTubers, it's not. However, those 84 coasters include almost every major roller coaster in the state of California, with a few exceptions. So while I'm not qualified to say too much on the topic of roller coasters around the world, I can say that I am fairly well versed in the coasters of the US's most populous state. So without further ado, here are the top 10 roller coasters in the state of California, according to some jerk on the internet who's ridden a whopping 84 of them. Wait, what? Yes, I put Space Mountain at number 10. Now, before you click off this video thinking I'm some stupid Disney fanboy, I have legitimate reasons to put this ride on this list. The three other contenders for this spot were West Coast Racers at Magic Mountain, Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm, and Medusa at Discovery Kingdom, which, while they all have much more exciting roller coaster elements than Space Mountain, I don't really think that any of them are anything special. West Coast Racers has some fun moments and a cool dueling aspect, but beyond that, it's really not that thrilling of a coaster itself. Hang Time has that awesome vertical lift and beyond vertical drop, but follows that up with a few rather forceless inversions. And Medusa, while definitely being one of the best floorless coasters by B&M, is still a very similar ride to all of these other coasters by B&M around the state. Don't get me wrong, they are definitely all fun rides, but they just don't have what it takes to overcome the immaculate theming that Space Mountain has to offer. Even though Space Mountain would probably be around number 50 in the state if it was outdoors like all the other coasters on this list, the theming really adds something special that makes it deserving of at least a mention among the best. The build-up and anticipation this ride has, with its awesome loading platform and excellently themed chain lift sections, is unrivaled by any other coaster in the state. And of course, putting a roller coaster in the dark makes it so much more fun because you don't know what forces to expect, and it makes the ride seem much more thrilling than it actually is. But for me, the star of this ride is the score by composer Michael Giacchino, which really gives you the unique feeling of flying through space that is unmatched by any other roller coaster in California. Let's go! Full Throttle is one of the most thrilling halves of any roller coaster you can find. It has an awesome first launch, some crazy hang time on one of the world's largest vertical loops, a backwards launch, some more crazy hang time, a third great launch into a top hat that gives you a great view of the park, and then some of the most intense airtime you will ever experience on a roller coaster, and then you suddenly break out of nowhere, right as the ride was really amping up. I mean, I know you were trying to fit this ride into a tight space, but seriously, Six Flags, what were you thinking here? That being said, despite this ride literally cutting itself off by ending in the middle of its best element, there's still so much good stuff here. The moment of hang time you get on the first vertical loop is easily the best moment of hang time in the entire state. The backwards launch is a fun and unique element that takes most people by surprise the first time they ride it. The third launch is one of the most forceful launches in the state, and that final moment of airtime is one of the strongest you will ever experience, even if it is only half of an airtime moment. Gold Striker is the type of roller coaster that doesn't really have any spectacular elements to it, but you still get off thinking how great of a ride that was. It's not that tall or that fast, its airtime is decent but not necessarily that intense, and it doesn't really pull any crazy forces. But this ride has absolutely amazing pacing. As with most roller coasters by Great Coasters International, this ride feels relentless. You are constantly twisting and turning, pulling quick pops of airtime, and going through tunnels and under other sections of track. There is never a dull moment on this ride. It feels like it uses its average height and speed to its full potential. and that is something a lot of other rides definitely do not do. My one complaint is that Gold Striker was starting to get a little bit rough when I rode it last, back in 2019, and while that roughness is tame enough to actually add a bit of thrill now, they do need to keep an eye on it because if it gets any rougher, that could really become a problem. But overall, Gold Striker is just a fun roller coaster that I definitely can't wait to ride again.
Smile, though your heart is aching.
Joker is one of 3 roller coasters built by Rocky Mountain Construction on this list, and it is definitely the worst of the 3. But I think that says more about the quality of RMC roller coasters than it does about the quality of Joker. Like Gold Striker, Joker is a ride that doesn't necessarily rely on height or speed, but it just paces out its elements so well. However, it's higher on this list because those elements are just better than the ones on Gold Striker. The airtime moments are definitely much sharper, the drop is far steeper and more intense, and Joker has 3 really fun and unique inversions that you don't see on many other coasters in California. Like all RMCs, its elements are very quick and snappy, and they don't give you much time to breathe in between them. Honestly, there's not much more to say, other than Joker is just another really fun coaster that deserves a spot on this list. Accelerator is definitely the shortest coaster on this list, as it only lasts about 25 seconds from launch to brake run. But those 25 seconds are impeccable. First of all, it has one of the best launches that you'll ever experience on a roller coaster, and definitely the best launch on any roller coaster in California. You go from 0 to 82 miles per hour in just 2.3 seconds, which might not be as fast as some other well-known launch coasters, but the short launch track means that it actually has the 7th quickest acceleration of any coaster in the world, just behind rides known for their insane launches like King Ka and Formula Rossa. After the launch, you are flung over a 205-foot tall top hat and pull some very intense airtime going down the drop, especially in the back row. And the bank turns that finish out the ride, while definitely not anything special, still do pull some pretty intense forces that cap off the ride nicely. And even though it is a shorter ride overall than Full Throttle, which I put at number 9, I think Accelerator's launch is far more intense, the top hat is taller, and it actually feels like a complete experience because it doesn't stop in the middle of the ride's best element, which are the main reasons that I put Accelerator at number 6. Tatsu is a flying roller coaster built by the company B&M, and it is the only one of its kind in the state of California. Right off the bat, the elements this ride has are not what make it special. Well, at least most of them, but we'll get to that. The ride really just consists of a shallow drop, some cookie cutter inversions, and a few turns, but it is how you are oriented on this ride that makes it so exciting. On Tatsu, you are not sitting up. You are situated in a flying position underneath the track, and you get to feel the sensation of flight throughout the ride. So, a generic turn, which you might consider boring on one roller coaster, is definitely not boring at all here, because the positioning of it really gives you a unique sensation that you can't find on many other roller coasters, as well as some absolutely phenomenal views of the park. But that being said, there is one element on this ride that is very special, and that is the 120-foot tall pretzel loop. Definitely my favorite part about this ride is getting to ride it with people who have never been on it before, and watching their reaction when they turn the corner and see this ungodly thing. It's so unnerving because it doesn't look like it should be able to exist on a roller coaster. And even though the rest of the ride isn't very forceful, the pretzel loop is a whole other story, as I think this moment is by far the most intense element on any coaster in California, as you are absolutely slammed into the back of your seat and held there for what feels like an eternity. Personally, it's not my favorite part of the ride because of just how intense the forces are, but I have a respect for it because of just how insane of an element it is. And I love how it adds an extra dimension to an already great coaster. Ghost Rider is a wooden roller coaster that was originally built by Custom Coasters International back in 1998. It was immediately considered to be one of the best wooden roller coasters in the country for its great airtime, insanely quick pacing, and long ride duration. But not too long after opening, it started to get rough. Like, really rough. To the point that guests were consistently complaining about the ride causing them pain. So in 2015, Knott's announced that GCI, the same company that built Gold Striker, would completely retrack Ghost Rider and try to restore it to its former glory. In its current form, while I have heard that it isn't quite as good as its glory days back in the late 90s, this ride is still nearly perfect. The first half of Ghost Rider consists of a very fun drop, some nice floater air time, and when you hit the midpoint of the coaster, I would honestly be happy if it ended there. But the back half of Ghost Rider is where it becomes absolutely insane. In the back of the train, the drop off this straight track has some of the craziest airtime I've ever experienced, and it doesn't relent from there. For the rest of the ride, you are pulling crazy, positive, negative, and lateral forces one right after the other, while flying underneath the structure of the first half of the coaster, which makes it feel like you're going even faster than you really are. It's all capped off by this crazy unbanked helix, which throws you into the person next to you. When you hit the brakes, you are completely out of breath because of just how crazy Ghost Rider was. Railblazer, which was built back in 2018, was the second ever RMC Raptor Track single rail coaster model. And even though this ride is not very tall and not very fast in the grand scheme of things, it packs one of the craziest punches of any roller coaster I've been on. From the first drop to the final brakes, there are absolutely no breathers. As great as I think the pacing is on Gold Striker, Joker, and Ghost Rider, none of those even come close to how quickly this ride transitions from one insane element to another. The single rail design of the track and the single file design of the trains allows this coaster to pull off elements that are far more compact and insane than any other coaster on this list. As the single rail track can bend in such weird and unnatural ways, you experience forces on Railblazer that you didn't even know were possible before. The first drop in this ride is crazy, especially because it has a pre-drop section that allows it to build up speed. All of the inversions on this ride are extremely whippy and provide wild lateral forces, and the airtime on this coaster is easily some of the strongest airtime in the state as well. Railblazer is number 3 on this list because in my opinion, it is the best 30 seconds on any roller coaster in California. It has absolutely everything I want out of a roller coaster. The only reason it can't top this list is because it is just so short.
It had to be you. It had to be.
I almost question whether or not to call X2 a roller coaster. I mean, obviously, it is an amusement park attraction that consists of a light railroad track with many tight turns and steep slopes on which people ride in small, fast, open cars. But it's also more than that. X2 is an experience because it does not follow the traditional orientation of a coaster where you sit on top of a track and face forward. On X2, you are positioned on the outside of the track, which allows you to spin 360 degrees in addition to the drops, turns, and inversions that you are already experiencing. This ride is so disorienting the first few times you ride it because at one point you'll be riding forwards, and the next thing you know, you've done 2 flips and now you're facing the ground. Every moment on this ride is absolutely mind-boggling, from the first drop until you hit the final brakes. I think my favorite single element on any coaster that I've ever been on, all 84 of them, is the first drop on X2. Because unlike a normal first drop, you are free and open when you are falling, and it actually feels like you are skydiving towards the ground. This moment is actually what made me fall in love with roller coasters in the first place, because it is such a crazy experience that you can't get anywhere else in North America. But not just that. It's one of the only first drops where you completely flip on the way down as well, and then the ride gets even more disorienting from there. That all being said, this ride is not number 1 for one big reason, and that is that only half of the seats on this ride are really tolerable. The inside seats closer to the track, while they can be a bit rough at times, generally give you a decently smooth experience. But the seats that are further away from the track can be way too much to handle, especially if you don't know when to brace yourself. Since X2 originally opened as X almost 20 years ago, the train's rotations aren't necessarily that smooth. Instead of cleanly rotating from one position to another, the train kind of rocks back and forth when going through these transitions. On the outside seats, that motion is accentuated by some additional motion that occurs from the movement of the arms of the trains, which can cause you to hit your head really hard if you aren't bracing yourself properly. And for a new rider who doesn't know when to brace themselves, that can be a real problem. I really hope this ride undergoes a long refurbishment again, like it did when it transitioned from X into X2, and get some new updated trains that increase comfort. But until then, X2 can still rest easy as the second best roller coaster in California, because even though it might be rough, it is still an experience unmatched by nearly any other. Twisted Colossus is my favorite roller coaster in California because it just has the best of all the other roller coasters on this list. It has the great pacing of Gold Striker and Joker, the snappy transitions of Railblazer, and the length of Ghost Rider. But the best part is that the airtime on this ride is just as strong as the craziest moments of airtime that you can find on any of these rides. But on Twisted Colossus, there's just so much of it. This ride is just an ejector airtime machine, giving you moment after moment of ejector airtime, each one feeling stronger and more intense than the last. And with my favorite type of force on a roller coaster being ejector airtime, this ride is absolutely perfect in my opinion. And the best part about it is that you get to ride it twice, as there is both a blue side and a green side to the track, and you get to ride both of them, one right after the other. And if you are there on a good day, sometimes you might even be able to duel the other train during this already awesome roller coaster, which just adds even another dimension to the experience. There's really no other way to describe it. Besides inconsistent dueling, this ride is just perfect. Perfect drops, perfect airtime, perfect inversions. It's just the perfect roller coaster, and in my opinion, the best roller coaster in California. That was my top 10 favorite coasters in California. What did you guys think? What is your favorite roller coaster in California? Let me know down below, and let me know your coaster count as well, because it's probably higher than mine. With that being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more exceptionally mediocre content from the theme park zone.